Hi everybody and welcome back to Visit Fylde Coast. First of all, as I pass it, this parking notice is absolutely nothing to do with the Wire Beach management scheme. There was going to be some filming on Rossall Promenade that was going to take place over one day tomorrow, and it's been cancelled. So that's what that is. So that's that one cleared up. So this video is all about the Wire Beach management scheme. Now, if you've been watching our Visit Fylde Coast channel, you'll have heard me waffling on about this over the last few months. And if you're familiar with Rossall Beach, you'll know that this beach has changed an awful lot in the recent weeks. This step area here was normally completely invisible. So we'll go down here and we'll use this as our first port of call. Just listen to that sea. I love to hear it like that. And bonus, it's getting round to that sort of later time of the afternoon as well. So this is a bit sunset-esque. So you might have seen discussion on Facebook about this upcoming work, and loads of people have got the wrong end of the stick and not quite got the right story. So I thought I'd fully intended doing a video about it, but I thought we'd do it sooner rather than later, and then you'll all know exactly what's happening. So let's start here, shall we? Right, so what is this going to be? Well, there's a planning application that's gone in by Wire Council to do the first phase of the work. And this is part of a wider job to hold this beach in place. Because as we all know, the mighty Irish Sea is capable of wreaking quite a lot of damage when it feels like it. I mean, it's hard to believe when you stand here on such a lovely afternoon. But the job's been split into two phases to allow the rest of the preparation studies to be completed. So as we stood here, if you know this beach and you're familiar with it, as I said, you'll know that this is really unusual to be able to see the steps. Normally this beach is kind of sloped like that, pretty much up to the top, and even then the waves are big here as they hit this bit of sea wall. So what they're going to do, they're going to dig out the sand, and I don't think they'll need to do much digging, and against the bottom of this sea wall comes down in a concrete curve to, I don't know, maybe I don't know, somewhere here-ish. It's got quite a run on it, but there's nothing underneath the bottom of the beach, so there's nothing to stop that sea wall from being eroded, undermined, and slipping and failing and giving way, basically. And when you look at it, I mean, it dates back to the 1930s, 40s-ish. And when you look at it, you can see it's not, it's quite solid, but it's not in the best of condition. So it's not entirely far-fetched to think that coastal erosion is, it is a possibility. So when they've dug the sand out, they're going to put rocks, big rocks like the ones that they used at Rossall, against the sea wall like that at an angle. And they're going to stabilise the beach, and they're going to hold the sand in the beach in place. Because when you look at this here, if there were to be a storm, if there's a really bad 1 in 200 year storm in the next couple of weeks, there is going to be a lot of water coming over that sea wall. that's going to be quite a problem. You can see how the beach is cut away here as well, and how there's just a little slope that's against the sea wall. So this is what's protecting it currently. And if that erodes, there's trouble ahead, as they say. So the rocks are going to be put against the sea wall, and that's what's called toe protection, against the toe of the sea defences. And when it's finished, there will be nothing visible. There will be nothing left to see. And beach works like that, as the engineer always says, they're like an iceberg. There's very little that's actually sort of floating above the top surface. So if planning goes according to plan, that work could start in May and be finished by Christmas. So in itself is not a huge job. Now I'm walking in this direction because this is where the beach access is going to come from. So obviously, in order to be able to put rocks across the full width of the beach, it's going to take a lot of rock. So the rock is going to be brought down onto the beach with dumper trucks coming from Jubilee Gardens, and they're going to come down the ramp, which is just up here against the tractors where they're actually parked there now. The fishermen are out in the little boats, and the ramp at the side of the cafe is going to be widened in order to provide safe access for the trucks to come down to the beach. And on this corner, as you can imagine, it's going to be a busy little spot at certain times. It's not going to be busy all the time, because obviously some of this work is going to be tidal. Some of it is going to be fine, but they've got to track up and down the beach, so there potentially will be limits to when they're able to work. So the traffic lights on this corner are going to be permanently on green to control traffic when the dumper trucks need to cross from Jubilee Gardens onto the beach. So they will only turn to red when trucks are crossing. So it's not going to be an annoyance to people that are driving up and down and using the promenade, because obviously it's quite a busy road. There will be a short period of time while the road is actually closed, because there's going to be a concrete slab put over the top surface of the road to protect it, a reinforced concrete. Because as you can imagine, we don't want to end up with the road completely trashed. So that's only going to be a quick job. I'm not sure how long that's going to take, but we're talking days / weeks rather than anything any longer than that. There is no intention at all to close the beach while this work is being carried out. If you remember, last year they did some site investigations, and they came with the diggers and the tractors, and they scraped some of the sand away from the seawall so that they could look to see how the seawall had been built and how far the toe extended and what the conditions were like underneath the beach. So it's going to be very similar to when they did that. While they're working... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to just stop. I've seen a piece of green sea glass. I must pick that up. Look at that, that's lovely. That's mine, that one. Ooh, pretty. So they're just going to work in one spot. It will be marshalled, and they'll put spikes and tape on the beach on a day-by-day basis, just as they're working. So you'll be able to carry on using the beach, and nobody's going to stop you from coming walking and all the other things that you want to do. But Wire Council genuinely, the engineering team genuinely have done everything that they can and tried their hardest and worked their best. They've had the money from the Environment Agency and the contractors appointed for 12 months, and the time since then has all been taken up by trying to negotiate where the actual site compound would go. And we're walking in this direction. I'm going to just pop into Jubilee Gardens and show you where the compound's going to go, and then you'll understand that. So it's common knowledge that Rossall School was expected to be the site for the work compound, and I know, I genuinely know for a fact that the council team did everything that they could to try and bring that arrangement to a satisfactory conclusion, and that is what held the job up, because by now it should have been well underway. But the demands that were made by the school were just not meetable. I know that's not a proper word, but you know what I mean. And a whole host of other things that were just not doable in order to be able to deliver a civil engineering job like this. So even after officers had called a halt to it, the chief executive at the council and some of the councillors stepped in, and they tried to negotiate with the school, and the negotiating wasn't for being had. So unfortunately that was the end of that, and an alternative had to be found. Now it's also being suggested that it might be a potential alternative to use the empty Pizza Hut building and the car park at the back of the Jubilee leisure development, and that is just not feasible. Number one, it's not council owned land, so the process of even getting hold of it would be, well, nigh on a nightmare. They're not just wanting to park vehicles and run a site, they need to store rock. So that's got to be factored in. You can't store rock on a car park. They can't reinforce all the road. Access for rock deliveries would be next to impossible. And when you think about it practically, it sounds a good idea when it's first mentioned. But when you think about it practically, it's obvious that it wouldn't be a feasible alternative. So unfortunately, Jubilee Gardens is sort of Hobson's choice. There's not really anywhere else that it could be done. And yes, it's going to be, well, annoying. But it's got to be done. And we've got to be safe, and we've got to stabilise the beach and make it safe and protect against flooding and erosion, because the consequences of that sea wall collapsing and falling in would be too awful to think about. So this little part of the promenade here, where this lady is on this scooter, is going to be closed off to pedestrians. So from here to the first gate heading northwards, you're not going to be able to walk on that side of the road. You'll have to come through this gate, and you'll have to walk that way on the pavement in front of the venue. So the compound for the workmen is going to go in Jubilee Gardens, which is where we're approaching here. I'm out of breath. So the workmen's compound cabins are going to go up against the wall on the grass, so they'll be kind of pushed out of the way as much as possible. And the plan is that the car park can be left open at weekends and bank holidays and days when nobody's working, so that there's still plenty of parking space for people to come and use the beach. And you can see down here that there's a little fence there in between the car park and the bowling greens. So if you imagine a line coming across the middle of the Jubilee Gardens, in line with that fence, there won't be anything at the back of that. So there's quite a big space at the back of where the rock is going to be stored, and most of it is going to be at the back of that obelisk with Jubilee Gardens written on it, which, as you can see, is currently a grassy field. So I think I've pretty much covered everything there. Now, I appreciate a lot of people are not going to like this. Obviously, it's nothing to do with me, as it were. It's not my decision, it's not my money, and it's not my project. But it's important. You can see, actually, as we stood here, I've literally walked a little few yards down this little footpath that leads into the car park, and you can see how we're already dropping below sea level. And if there were to be a breach, and the seawall was to be eroded, you can see how many houses and how much property would be exposed to flooding. And I do know that in 1977, when the last bad flood happened, that the water was right back to the tramway and beyond. And I don't really think that we want to live with that, do we? It's not quite the kind of thing that would be a good idea. So there'll be lots more information, lots more updates. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic has not helped, because it's meant that a lot of the events and consultation and information that would have normally been handed out has been stymied. But there will be lots of information, and if you've got any queries, you can put your comments underneath this video, and we will do our best to try and address them for you in future episodes. So I hope you've enjoyed this little update, and don't forget to subscribe to the Visit Fylde Coast YouTube channel if you want to find out what's happening. We either usually know or know who to ask. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to tell all your friends to subscribe. So we will see you soon. Bye for now.